Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe in the news of the day. However, it's not really going to be about the news of the day, or at least not this day anyway. A couple of days ago, I was reading up on the comments made by Jenny Ellis, who is a former attorney of Donald Trump's, who has her own show and decided to vent out her opinion as it concerns of the 5 dead who died at Club Q. And this is her show, and now as if someone was asking her questions, she decided to throw this out into the ethers 4 days after they died. So we're not even a week. Okay. But Jenny Ellis is, I'm going to read this off of a Newsweek article. Jenny Ellis, an ex-attorney for former President Donald Trump, is facing backlash after suggesting that those killed in a mass shooting at a gay bar in Colorado are now suffering eternal damnation in hell. 5 people were killed and at least 17 others injured after a gunman opened fire at Club Q in Colorado Springs on Saturday. Suspect such and such, because I'm still not going to say their name, is being held in El Paso County Jail. Many have blamed the shooting on an increase of violent anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, which had been recently focused on baseless accusations that its community is grooming children to be sexualized, abused, or to become gay or transgendered. Ellis, who has previously warned that an unnamed they, in quotes, might try to cancel Christianity, said during the Wednesday edition of the Jenny Ellis Show that the quote, far greater tragedy of the shooting was her assumption that those who lost their lives at Club Q had not affirmed Jesus Christ as their Lord of their life, and were burning in hell after being killed. Quote, there is no evidence at all that the victims were Christians, Ellis said. So assuming that they were not, they have not accepted the truth of the gospel of Christ and affirmed Jesus Christ as the Lord of their life. They are now reaping the consequences of having eternal damnation. They are now in eternal separation of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Okay. I have a little issue with that. And I voiced my issue on that. To which I got into a back and forth on Middle America with Vin from Vin Authorities Middle America. And the conversation went back and forth until I pretty much suggested that, why don't you shoot a video to say that to the parents of the 5 people that died that their children are in hell. But I don't think you're going to do it because regardless that you may think that way, that you as a good person knows that it would be an awful thing to say. Silly me, he did that. And essentially, he addressed it to me directly. And so I was typing into this live stream, responding to him, responding to me, and the back and forth. And before I continue with this, I want to point out and want to make this really clear that Vin is absolutely a good guy. And we disagree on various things, but even when we're having this back and forth, I know his heart is in the right place. He's not trying to talk down. He's not doing any of this, any drama. He's not instigating a fight or anything. He's just, trying to convey from his point of view. That said, as I am questioning the motives of this woman, and he's saying I'm judging her, and well, yes, I am judging her. I'm judging whatever her motivation is for her to suggest saying this 4 days after they were killed. And then he brought up some scripture that he has macroed, that so he can always instantly put them up whenever he wishes, which for my first time I saw this, I couldn't help thinking in my mind, you teacher's pet. Anyway, but so we're going back and forth on this, as you know, because that of the words that Jesus Christ himself said on us, not a similar matter of someone being shot or so forth, but on the similar matter of, while you're weeping for them, I'm trying to think of how it was worded, sorry. But it was along the lines of, he would tell people that who had not chosen him as the way would be going to hell as they had died. And if I'm not getting it right, pardon me, I'm not well versed, and this was something that was this was an interaction that happened a few days ago, and I just got out work, so caveats, please. But as I was going through back and forth with this, I never mentioned Jesus Christ. I'm not questioning Jesus Christ having said it, nor questioning his manner of saying it. I am questioning her motivations of, after 4 days of 5 people who have died, that she felt the need to bring this up, that, since there's no evidence of them being Christians, which of course I ask, what evidence would there be? Are they glowing in the dark, or are they not wearing crucifixes? Be that as it may, it's just, I guess since they died in a LGBTQ club, that's automatic, right? I guess so. So that's the no evidence. So yeah, they're roasting in hellfire and suffering in complete and utter anguish, apparently. And while Vin is trying to talk to me about this, and I'm reserving myself, but I am getting a little irritated on this. Now, I'm not versed in the Bible, and he apparently got to realize that I wasn't, and made the assumptions that I didn't believe. And I mean, it's an interesting assumption. It's not doesn't have to be well thought out. It's just not as if I show one way or another where I go. But what I pretty much said on that was that, just because I don't know doesn't mean I'm against. So it's not as if I am like a pagan who is a dedicatedly anti-Christian or anything of that nature. So, the conversation, for the most part, the conversation actually was good. And it wasn't really insulting, it wasn't really talking down, it wasn't any of that, or at least it wasn't really intentional. But I have to say that if I was somebody who was on the fence on whether to believe or not, and seeing the scriptures that he was macroing up, I would be less and less interested in it. Because I have to explain my thought process in what I believe, or my theory of belief is. First, to the general concept of God. I believe there is God. I couch this belief on not only just the feeling of it, of this grand creator, male, female, everything, all together, all or nothing, except so forth, on 2 various points. One, kind of a theory point. I believe at least the point of intelligent design is where we come from in terms of how we evolved, and where we evolved specifically. You think of the numbers, the odds of the 3rd planet from the sun, far enough away from the sun that it would allow a temperate zone of an atmosphere to be formed that would be able to generate life without that atmosphere collapsing in on itself, or like Venus. You got that distance from the sun, and then you got enough ingredients inside for life to form, where the first amino acids come together to build the first protein, and how life generated from there. There's that. And there is the actual physical makeup of our solar system. Is that no matter how many times you have seen the moon, you've seen the craters on the moon, and the occasions that something has struck the moon, and or struck the Earth, as in the one meteor that struck the Earth to wipe out the dinosaurs, as the various other ones that have hit over our ages of its existence on this Earth. All the other planets that circle the sun are attracting the bulk of the asteroids and meteorites that are coming, that glide into that glide path of gravity. So they're hitting everything else, and it's only the minute amount of them that comes and hits through them, through the arc of the gravity, that could come anywhere close to us, much less to strike us. So I take that as a bit of intelligent design upon how our life lucked out in this cosmic mathematical crapshoot. There's that. The other one is a little bit more personal, and I almost call it like kind of a minor miracle. This happened years and years and years ago. My mother had this dog named Zeus. Zeus was an older Bichon Frise. Insanely intelligent dog. Well, a type of dog that, when you know it's happy, it actually smiles. It does a little smirk. Anyway, the dog knew where to go to the bathroom outside. So when you open the door, the dog would go out, run around the house to the backyard, do its business, run all the way back to the front yard without any distractions, without anything moving around. He didn't go after. He went there and back. One day, the dog never returned from my mom taking him out. And my mom was getting really upset about this. And she called me down and she wanted me to go to find him. Now, this is like a summer. This is around June or July, years and years ago. So it was a sunny day. Partly cloudy, but mostly blue sky out, okay? So I'm going up and down the neighborhood looking for the dog Zeus. And as I'm going down a drive on this a little road, it starts raining. I go past it. It stops raining. I walk back around. I double back, going up the road, up the drive, going back towards Commonwealth, the boulevard I used to live on. It's raining again in front of this house. I take a little closer look into the house, towards the house. Sure enough, my dog is in this guy's backyard. So I'm like, excuse me, sir, I believe my dog is in your backyard. And he says, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I just saw him running around and I didn't know what to do, so just put him back there with my dog. And it's okay, fine. And I took my dog back and went back to my house. Turns out that house was adjacent to my house. Like, it's not behind it, but it was like lower to the side, but the fencing connects. And he does have a dog, it's just that this guy apparently never did anything with his dog. He left him outside. Exposure. A little dog house, but never really interaction, never going outside. Never saw him outside with him, and the dog was just like, just there. So he was having my dog over there as company for his dog. Yeah. Well, I got my dog back. It stopped raining, and I went back to my house. So I take that as faith that God helped a little schmuck like me find my mother's dog. So fight me on that if you think that's otherwise. In any event. So, in terms of there being a God, I believe. I believe there is. Here's the thing, though. With that major point just set in stone, everything else gets a little murky for me. I used to have a saying that, the belief is fine, the belief is wonderful. It's the religion that screws things up, the human institution. And I don't know. When it comes to, say, Christianity, as far as I'm seeing from an outside point of view, whether you consider it outside or not, I actually don't, but whatever. Apparently I'm misinterpreting things, whatever. When it comes to going into the religious belief, the religious doctrine, joining a church of whatever denomination, people go into it, I will say, 8 times out of 10, with good intentions, actually wanting to learn the faith, actually believing and dedicating themselves to it. They're generally good people. They want to help other people. And in these cases, for me, that makes religion a net positive globally, if it inspires people to be good to their fellow man or woman. But if you're going to go into, say, a belief system out of the coercive fear that if you don't, you're going to hell, then that would have to question one's belief. Are you doing it out of because you truly believe? Or are you doing it for fear of what will happen if you don't? And that type of thing is a game that I would not expect a god, any god, to be playing with the supplicants. I've been told, from whatever I believe in, or whatever my stances are, some political, some not, that I will get judged by God. My response to that is, yeah, I will be. Because as far as I'm concerned, God knows me. God already knows my mind, already knows my heart, already knows what I am saying, what is truthful, and what could be bullshit. From stuff that I may believe, or I might convince myself I'm believing, to the actual reality of the situation at hand. There's no talking your way out of God, from my point of view. There's no, I can show you a list of good accomplishments. If I'm truly not believing in my head or in my heart, because all that, what does that matter? I'm giving you a laundry list for nothing. Just for what? Score brownie points? No. I'm going in on the believed, theorized opinion that my deeds, my thoughts, what I strive for, my virtues, my sins are already been tabulated. So, that doesn't concern me. Sorry. And again, though, I believe that the belief system is the net positive. And it is one of those things where God filters down towards all of us globally. And this is where I'm going to get into kind of a personal opinion on this. So if it doesn't jive with what you believe in, absolutely, it's just me. It is absolutely just me. I'm not critiquing what you believe. I'm not going to ever say whatever you believe is wrong. There's only very few caveats where I would even question that, is that if, in case, whatever you believe in inspires you into bigotry, or prejudice, or advocating the harm of, or harming, injuring, or killing someone, or someone's, based on a religious edict that is swirling around in your mind thinking that's what God wanted you to do. But beyond that, I rest on the laurels of what's right for me is right for you, what's right for you is right for you. But lost the train of thought there for a second. Being all righteous and so forth. Ooh. No, I don't like the idea that if you're not in the club, or you're not fully funded into the club, that you're not advocating, showing yourself towards other mortal, frail mortal human beings, that you are in the club or not, that somehow that's going to penalize you in the hereafter with God. Because from my point of view, and again, it's only my point of view, God already knows. So, all of this is just an interesting diversion from our day-to-day until the sands of time has hit the bottom of the hourglass. The sister's fate has taken the shears to our string. And we don't know. But the thing about even me saying that is that someone who truly believes this says, oh no, I do know. I do know. Because I have all this. Not only the fact that my own personal belief, I am backing that personal belief up with all the scripture there is that confirms. That's great, but again, that only reinforces your own belief. That doesn't necessarily transfer well towards other people. I've been running through this. The last few days I've actually been thinking about this. And it's just, as I was going through my thinking, and ultimately what are the answer? What's the answer to the question of what I believe? Or if I believe, or if I'm not believing. I mean, I guess the one term that could be suggested of me is that I'm maybe agnostic. That it's not me being an atheist that's saying that there's no God. I actually believe there is a God. I believe, from my point of view and my theory of it, is that this God is the same God that has tried over the eons of their being an evolved, intelligent society throughout our world. And God, as God, can do this because God is God, divide itself into a polytheistic pantheon if primitive people believe that one God has to be responsible for this, one God has to be responsible for that. And it's like, fine. I will roll with the punches. I will say, oh yes, I am Hephaestus. I am the smith god. I am the god of blacksmithing. And I live in a volcano. Yes. It's fine, as long as you're getting the point. And so he filters down the message that they want human society to take. Now, I'm going to also give the theorized opinion that God understands how evolved we are, and at the various levels of the ages of humanity, we weren't all that involved, society or mentally or whatever, so everything had to be understood in a certain way. And a time and place for things to click, for things to progress onward. And some concept might be a little bit too beyond us. So, He had to, bite size and portion it out into ways that we go, oh, that makes sense. Again, my theory. My belief theory on that. And then I kept thinking of going back to the religion, at least from some of my family, is that my mother's Catholic. My father lived in a Catholic house, but is not actively believing. However, my father does not disrespect others who do believe. It's just he doesn't give his opinion on it unless it's asked. And you want it, you get it. But sorry, I keep thinking. I'm rattling my head around in this. It is hard to go into the idea of like everything has to be taken all or nothing. All or nothing. It kind of forces away the understanding and just like you better go along with all this if you truly believe. And I don't know if that's, if put upon, I don't know if I would go with that. If it was something that, you over time get to realize of it, and then you can nod your head and says, yeah, that makes sense after a while. But having it forced into you is that, if you believe this thing, you better believe that thing. And you better disagree with that over there. And you better be upfront and direct about it. And it's like, really? You're invading my space here. But it almost like, for me, and I'm like kind of rambling back and forth here, sorry. Like when it comes to like say Jesus Christ, I always like the the biblical movies and the depictions of them of Christ and other religious icons and so forth. And one of my favorite one of all time was the 1979 Jesus movie, and I think that's what it's actually called. Where I've seen other versions of movies depicting Christ, it's like they're doing the grand, the Jesus pose, the eyes looking upward, and it's always, everything was, very solemn and holy. The Jesus depicted in the 1979 one, he sat on the floor with his apostles. He laughed. He was teaching you the Gospels, but he wasn't teaching you like on a podium, pounding it into your head. He's teaching to you while he's like sitting there and he's eating with you, and he's smiling and he's listening to you. I love that. That is so cool to me, and that particular type of idea of him. I have a difference of opinion as opposed to others upon what was more important. Was his death the most important thing? I mean, in the grand scheme, I'm sure it can be. I went into watching, like, say, The Passion of the Christ, and I come out of that not feeling inspired, not feeling dramatically uplifted or sad or anything. I got out of it pissed off. And what I was pissed off at was not even what happened to Jesus. Not per se, because, you read it, you knew what was coming and so forth. I was kind of pissed at the gratuity of it all. I mean, I didn't really need a scourge whip to open up his side so I could see his ribs. I didn't really need that. But I wanted to see more of what Christ was like living. You know what I mean? Not how he died, and he's dying for the sins, but what was he doing? What was he saying and doing up to this point? I had gotten, when I was a kid, watching any of this and growing up, I always got the impression that Jesus was trying to convey this to his apostles and those who followed. All the good teachings that he wanted to teach, and then for some reason my mind kept going, yeah, but these people just want to see the tricks, don't they? They're like nodding their heads, yeah, that's great, Jesus, but can you show us more of the divine stuff? Water the wine, the loaves and fishes, so that was great. Lazarus, pick him up again? And the cynical side of me goes, they're just interested in the magical mystery tour, as opposed to what he's trying to teach these people. And in a way, I can almost... that must have been frustrating. Especially for the people who actually believed who he was. And you would think it wasn't required. But, I don't know. So again, I'm rambling on this sort of thing. But again, this is like this is the thought processes of those people who are not, nailed down on everything Scripture, and then believing wholeheartedly, without anything, going about it. And what I never wanted to do ever is I never want to challenge or question someone who believes, because I don't want to attack someone's belief system. If what you believe in either makes you a good person, or it assists you in being a good person and maintaining yourself as a good person, helping others, helping yourself, helping your family, I don't want to do a thing about to cause anything towards that. I mean, God bless you for that, But there's sometimes there are some contradictions. And I only realized this today as I was thinking about how I was going to do this video. I was going back and thinking about the circumstances of Moses, the Ten Commandments, and the plagues on Egypt in order to free his people from bondage. Moses was cast out. He left. He found God. He came back as an instrument of God with his staff that he used to herding the sheep, divinely enchanted to do God's wonders. Tells Ramesses to let my people go, and he refused. And through the wonders of all the plagues he sent, that God sent to the people of Egypt and to Ramesses, to make Ramesses relent and let the people go, to free them from slavery. And again, even when he changed his mind and went after them, and Moses parted the Red Sea, and a flaming column came down to prevent them from reclaiming the Hebrews, all the wonders that was done for that, right? We get to the point where Moses goes up the mountain to receive the Ten Commandments, to receive the commandments from God. That would be taken down and used to be the backbone of not only the Hebrew people and those that would follow, but it becomes a backbone of like a lot of people's early days governmental laws from that time period onward, right? So, with all that said, with all that happened, why was there not a commandment, thou shalt not keep another man in bondage? I just thought of it today. I was like, why wasn't that? Why wasn't that one of the commandments? Thou shalt not take, keep, or enslave anyone. I mean, I'm a layman on this, so I'm sure there's going to be an answer somewhere in the ethers to explain this. But from the outsider's point of view here, God was offended that the Hebrew people were being enslaved by Egypt. But once they were freed, there was no commandment about slavery. Now, certain people like to take the concept of sins and don't do like a hierarchy of them. One sin's greater than another sin. Sometimes they want to keep the sin on the same vein, like bearing false witness or cheating on your taxes is as bad as murder for some people, right? I don't tend to go with that. I tend to think that certain sins are a little bit harsher than others. And I'm sorry for those who enjoy this particular list of 10 here, but thou shalt not keep slaves would trump thou shalt not commit adultery. That would trump thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, thy neighbor's goods. It would trump thou shalt not steal. Not counting the honor of thy father and thy mother. I am the Lord thy God. Don't have any other foreign gods before me, and always keep holy the Sabbath. Those aside. Outside of murder, slavery should be right underneath murder. Oh, and just one little point going back to Jenny Ellis, saying that there's no evidence of these people being Christian or not. Being in a LGBTQ club, if that's your yardstick, the person that shot them actually violated the 10 Commandments. They did not. So, again, maybe the death is probably a little bit more important, even in the grand biblical sense of a 10th commandment. The 5th commandment, according to Catholic lineup, was violated at the result of their deaths. Now, blood's getting up. Okay, hurry. And, I know people don't want you to, treat the Bible and treat it like a Chinese menu and just, take what you want and leave the rest, and all of this should be valid to you. Well, if that's the case, then, those people go after gay people because of Leviticus. Are they not picking and choosing? Because I'm sure we would know which house has people who are pretty big Levi fans, because every month, if they were married and they're married to a woman, they would be throwing out their furniture every month. That they would make pretty darn sure that every time they went to church or temple, that they'd be carrying little packets of salt. That they'd make sure that their clothing that they wore was all the same fabric, because all these other things were as sinful as homosexuality, and homosexuality was the death sentence. So therefore, if we're going back to that whole graded level of where all the sins are equal, wearing different fabrics should commit somebody to death. Or if they don't throw out their furniture, if someone in that household who happens to be a woman who happens to be menstruating was sitting on it. Or if you dare not take a bit of salt as offering to God. But yeah, the whole slavery thing actually kind of bugged me from that. And then I thought beyond that into Christianity is that, did they say anything? About the abolition of slavery? I don't know. I don't think they really did. I mean, first there's the passage. Forgive me. I know people. I know people better who are watching this will know which one I am referring to. But the one where it says, "Slaves, obey your worldly masters with fear and trembling, as they would." I'm paraphrasing. As they would to Christ. That seems to be like a promotion of slavery, isn't it? Or, if not promoting it, condoning it. Understanding that when these words were written, at the time that they were written, by the human beings who were writing it, they were writing it when slavery was a common practice. It's barely immoral. Unless, of course, you were a Hebrew slave and your slave master was Egyptian, but that was 6,000 years, back there. Who remembers that, right? But then I would hear tales about, like, how even in American slavery, how American slave masters encouraged their slaves to get into Christianity over passages like that to make them more appreciative of the slave master authority and making them more docile. Of course, that's not always the case, and maybe, their attempt at doing so probably is a pretty good backfire, because there are plenty of people who, even if it's not written down in Scripture, would still pray to God that they believe the Almighty All-Father to deliver them as the Hebrews were delivered. But there was no stroke of lightning. It was a civil war for America that killed over 500,000 people. And it was a stroke of a pen for the abolition of slavery and for the constitutional amendment as such. I don't know if I'm gonna go too long on this anymore. I'm trying to vent myself out in here to explain myself, because I want people to understand who interact with me where I'm coming from with this. I am not going to question what you believe. I'm not. I don't think it's wrong for you. I gave you the caveat reasons, the reasons where I would ever do so. But the majority of people I'm referring to and I talk to, there's no inclination of me doing that. Because these are good people. Either they're Christian or they're pagan. They're good people. But on that note, let me also make this clear. Whatever I believe in, or whatever I don't believe in, is my business. You don't want me to judge people? I don't want to be judged either. I don't want to be assumed I am one way or another way. And that whatever that assumption is, that should chalk me up to just, he believes that or he doesn't believe that, so why bother, right? No. Because here's the one thing that you all have to remember. We are all mortal human beings. Frail, flawed. We are not divine. As we are reminded, we are sinners. Sometimes the sin is pride. And even if you come from a good place, and you think what you're trying to say, what you're trying to convey is coming from a good place in your heart, the perception of it and the way that it is turned, the way that it's phrased, can change, can pollute that. In the end, we all stand before God. And as I said before, God knows me. So wherever I go after this, it's on me, and only me, my actions, my belief, what I've said, what I have done. But it's nobody else's concern. Let God handle that. And to not make this entirely a downer, why don't I tell a sacrilegious joke? Okay. Actually, I did this, I came up with this last year. It goes something along like this. A good, devout Christian family is going to midnight mass. For the purposes of my own imagination of this, let's say they're standing right outside of the National Cathedral in Washington. As they look up at the spire, appearing before them, amongst the crowd who don't notice it but them, comes Jesus Christ. No fanfare, no Gregorian chants, no shaft of light. He's just there. Says, "Hi, how you doing?" They know him because they believe. The Father's ecstatic, and he's like, he wants to tell everybody, look, behold. And he's like, Jesus is like, it's okay. I periodically I'm going to come down and just and be amongst the people, be amongst the believers, but just keep it a low profile. It's okay. It's just okay, but it's just okay, good, all right. And he asks if he could join them, and he does, and they wholeheartedly say yes, please. So they go from midnight mass. They go back to their house with Jesus. Jesus is, we're gonna get to bed pretty soon because it's Christmas tomorrow. And it says, oh, Christmas, what's that? And so they explain Christmas. They explain the story of his birth as they were taught, and he's smiling. His eyebrow kind of raises a few points, but he's not contradicting it or anything. He's just smiling and nodding. He appreciates it. He totally appreciates it. And he looks at the Christmas tree and says, "What's that?" Oh, that's the Christmas tree. Yeah. What is that for? Oh, well, Christmas. Well, we get a pine tree and we wrap up lights on it and put decorations and so forth. It's for the kids mostly, but it's a symbol of Christmas. He's still smiling. It's like, not really any pine trees in the arid environment that I was coming from, but hey, again, it's all in good spirit. It's I still feel it. So that's great. I never saw anything before when I was there, but it's okay. It's okay. I like it. It says, sorry, Mary and Joe. Well, we'll call them. Is that I am feeling a little tired. Is there a little space, like on in the living room or whatever? I can just go. No, my Lord, please. And he goes and he ousts his eldest son. Is like, Jesus, come on, you can have his room. And it's like, Jesus is like, that's really not necessary. I'm perfectly fine on the couch. He said, no, we insist. And the son is like, yeah, we insist. And it says, polite. And Jesus looks at him and he's just sympathetic and nods and says, okay, fine, very well. And just kind of gives him a pat. It's like, I owe you. And night passes. The next morning, the little kids come in and they're jumping on Jesus' bed because it's Christmas morning. It's an open presents. And Jesus is like, what? Okay. I guess this is part of this Christmas ritual. Okay, so Jesus goes and sits with the parents as the kids are all opening their presents, and I'm sure this has everything to do with me. I'm sure. Okay, and for the first time in his life, in his resurrected life, this is the first time he had coffee. So he has coffee. Okay, still smiling. He hears about Santa Claus. He hears about the reindeer. Again, no reindeer where he came from, but still he's smiling. Again, it's all good. It's all good. And maybe the messaging is not exactly how things actually happen, but he senses the good in their hearts, and all this breeds goodness and happiness. So he's good. He's happy. This is great. And so family and friend comes over. It's time for Christmas dinner. And he's sitting back, and he allows the father to tell, hey, this is Jesus, and everyone's, it's Jesus, how you doing? Hey, can you help me with this and this and this? And he smiles and he nods, and he's giving everybody their due, acknowledgement, and not No issues whatsoever. He's just smiling. Ever since his eye will twitch every once in a while when something kind of contradicts what he actually was going for, but nonetheless, right? So they finally settle in to the table for Christmas dinner. Everyone's gathering around. Jesus looks at the spread, and then he frowns. The smile's gone. And the family goes, "My Lord, my Lord, did we displease you? Is there something, did we do something wrong?" And Jesus looks at them, shakes his head. He gives a sigh. He looks at them. He looks at the Christmas dinner. He looks at the spread. He looks at the Christmas ham. Looks back at them and says unto them, "You know I'm Jewish, right?" And here ends the lesson.